What's happening, family? What's happening, music and mental health family? It's your boy Mark. I'm here again. I said this in my video, but once again, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, to the expecting mothers, to the soon to be mothers, and to the people who have a difficult time with this day because of their mothers not being here. My condolences to you, and I hope that you find a way to have peace and maybe some joy during this day. So the thoughts that I have are not really related to Mother's Day per se. It's just that things have been popping up on my timeline around this time of year from April all the way until around this day last year because we actually buried my dad on Mother's Day of 2023. So it was a very tough time of the year for us to be doing all this funeral planning and to be, I guess the person who it was the most unfortunate for, obviously, is my mother because, imagine having to bury your husband on the day that it's supposed to be dedicated to a celebration of you. I felt sad for her for that. At the same time, it was an oversight for all of us. We did know that it was Mother's Day, but even she was not in the mood to celebrate at that point in time, and nor were we. So that's just kind of how that went. It kind of reminded me of 2021 when my dad had a stroke on my birthday, and something that my grandma told me. It was my birthday. I had gotten some calls. Me and my parents went to church together. My mom asked me if we wanted to go to church together. I went, and he went, and she went, and we all went together. We took a picture together. We came home. We were having a family lunch, the three of us, and I was talking to him. I mean, at that point, he was in somewhat of later stages of his dementia. He wasn't at end stages yet, but he was in later stages on the scale, if you know anything about dementia and Alzheimer's. But he was able to talk to me, and he was like, "Hey, it's your birthday, huh? Happy birthday." So the three of us had sat down to eat, and then my mom was like, "I'm gonna go take a nap," and I sat out there with my dad, and we were just having a little conversation. And then I started looking at him, and something looked a little bit off. Like I was talking to him, and then I started asking him, "Hey, Dad, how are you doing?" And he started kind of staring off into space. Like he was just looking up, he was looking to the left and to the right. And I was like, this is kind of strange. So let me sit here with him for a little bit longer just to make sure that he's okay. I want to say, let's say, 5 minutes later or so, he started. He just kind of fainted. He started seizing up, and he almost fell out of the chair and onto the floor. And I was lucky that I was sitting right there because I jumped out of my chair and jumped over there right before he actually fully fell, and I was holding him up. I called my mom, and she ran out there. She was panicking, and she was attending to him. I called 911. 911 came. Long story short, oh, that was tough. So I remember I spoke to my grandma right after my mom got in the ambulance because I couldn't bring myself to get in the ambulance and go because that was such a traumatic kind of experience to happen the way that it did. And I thought he was dying. I thought he was going to die that day, which he didn't. He lived another couple of years after that, but I thought he was going to die that day. And so yeah, I called my grandmother, and then she was telling me this story about one of my cousins who was getting married 30, 40 years ago, maybe at this point. I don't remember the exact year, but it was some time ago. And she said that that particular person and her father were very, very close to each other. And she said the wedding was coming up, and it was like a week or two before the wedding, and they were out together. And the father fell down the stairs, hit his head, and went into a coma. And he ended up dying. And he was supposed to walk her down the aisle. And that was the expectation all this time. So my grandma told me, like, Mark, when you live long enough, you realize that nothing happens on our timing, and unexpected things can happen at any point in time. So we just have to count our blessings when things are going well, and we have to learn to accept when things are not going so well. So I say all of that to say this year, I might not be in the greatest mental state. I might not be in the greatest physical state. But right now, I'm not in a state of having to say goodbye to somebody mourning a present loss. Generally, I'm pretty healthy. I mean, I would like to be healthier, and I'm working on that, but I'm pretty healthy. You know, I don't have any chronic illnesses. I am dealing with a back issue, and I'm dealing with an issue with my neck, my knee. There are some things that I am working on, but it's not the worst thing in the world. And my sister and I got to celebrate, albeit briefly. We did get to celebrate my mother. We went out together. We went out to get something to eat, and we got to show her some love and appreciation. And today was actually a good day compared to last Mother's Day, which ended up being the hardest day that I've ever faced in my entire life. So, life has its ups and downs. Now, that was just my little opening for that. A couple other things that I have to say. I appreciate my mother, um, and I appreciate my grandmother because those were pretty much the two most consistent in my life. And as a matter of fact, when I was really young, I actually lived with my grandmother. So my grandmother was very, very active in my life. She still is. She still is now, but especially when I was a kid, she was extremely active in my life. A lot of what I've learned in my life is from her, and a lot of what I've learned in my life also comes from my mother. Mothers are very important. The mothers are oftentimes the nurturer in the family. The dad is, in my case, the dad is the was the disciplinarian. He was the guy who came home and just made sure you did what you're supposed to do. And if you didn't, he's gonna handle it with his voice, with his hands, with his belt, or whatever he can pick up. And then the mom is gonna be the one who kind of coddles you afterwards. Not that my mom was like one of those really cuddly moms that's like, oh, you could do no wrong because you're my son. She definitely was not that. She definitely was not that. But I'm saying, like, y'all know who have been in that position that the mom is the one. The mom is the one who will spend the time talking to you through your issues, your emotional needs, etc. And the dad is the one that just says, "You better do this, or you're gonna get it." And it was there. It's both of those things are love in their own ways, but you need both. It's kind of a yin and yang. You need both. You need the person who's going to be strict and the person who's going to be the bad guy, and you also need the person who is going to let you know that they love you, they're there for you no matter what. And I remember I was telling somebody this funny story. It's funny to me in retrospect because it wasn't funny to me at the time. My mom, she loves things like music, um, but she didn't really love anything that I liked in terms of my sports. She likes sports. She got into a couple of sports, like watching a few sports. She loves tennis, and there's a couple other things that she likes watching. But my sports that I played, she was not a big fan of that. And I remember my dad wasn't available to take me to my baseball games. And I remember she would take me to my baseball games. And I remember this one time, I was really good in the outfield, but I wasn't really that good at batting. I, I didn't have the hand-eye coordination for batting really. So I remember this one time I got like a big hit and I made it to third base, I think. And I looked out in the crowd expecting my mom to be there cheering for me, cheering me on, and she was knitting. She was she was sitting, I'll never forget that. She was sitting in the audience. She was sitting in the crowd knitting. And I was so angry. I remember I spoke to her afterwards and I was like, "You were really sitting in the crowd knitting while I was playing my baseball game?" And she was kind of like, "Mark, I'm here. Like, I don't really like baseball." She wasn't one of those, what do they call them? Soccer moms who was in the stands, like yelling and cheering, "That's my son." But the thing is, she did the best that she could do. She made sure she signed me up to be on that team. She paid the fees for me to be on that baseball team because I wanted to be on the baseball team, regardless of whether she liked it or not. So the point being, things that you don't appreciate so much when you're young, you start to appreciate them as you get a little older. My mom has always been really selfless, somebody who will sacrifice, who always put your needs ahead of her own. And also, my grandma is like that too. My grandma actually is probably, at least for my experience, the most selfless person that I know in life. She would give up her last dollar for somebody in need. She would take the shoes off her feet, give them to somebody else if they didn't have. That's just the type of person that she is, the type of person that she has always been. And I appreciate both of them. And that's what I got. So thank y'all for tuning in. I hope y'all had good Mother's Days. And please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell to get notified of when I drop some more great content. Thank you, everyone. Have an amazing rest of your day.